And very pleasant good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of JMU Sound Off. I am Jonathan McNamara from Richmond, Virginia. Thanks for spending part of your Sunday night with us. We know there's some pretty big NFL action on, so we appreciate you dividing your time for a great discussion tonight. We have a great guest from the Big Man Foundation. Former JMU football player Casey Kroll is going to join us. Tell us a little bit about the foundation and how you can get involved in their really important mission and the great work that they're doing each and every day. As always, want to thank our sponsors. First of all, from the Montpelier Collective, big shout out to everyone who purchased tickets for the Coach for a Day unique basketball experience. Your support of that is going to help student athletes at James Madison University, so we're truly appreciative of that. And as always, our friends from Skyline Financial Partners, we appreciate you helping us bring these episodes each and every day to you. Wanted to give some shout outs off the top of the back. We were fortunate to be a part of a great viewing party experience at Kindred Spirits Brewing last night in Richmond, Virginia. Big shout out to Barry Sanamon, Eric Bolin, and the team from Laburnum Park. Was a really great atmosphere there, packed with JMU folks. And that just shows the great work and the power of the JMU Alumni Association in Richmond, RVA Dukes, bringing so many Dukes together for a great Saturday night. We ran out of food in the food truck. So that's indication of just how many people were there to hear the band and to enjoy the game against App State. So shout out to them. They've got some more opportunities coming up in the Richmond area with RVA Dukes to bring people together. And with that, we'll bring in our co-hosts for tonight's episode, Steve Brown, Taylor Atkins, and Michael Evangelista. Guys, I know you were all watching some of the basketball action this weekend. First of all, we want to give a big shout out right off the top of the episode to our JMU women's basketball team. Gets a big win over App State last night, 78-61, bringing them to 15-6 on the season, 7-2 on the year. Big story coming out of that game: 4,000 fans packing into the Atlanta Union Bank Center to cheer on the women's team. So really proud of their efforts this far this season, getting one half of the doubleheader with App State. The men's team falling 82-76. Falling to 18-3 on the year. Go to you first, Taylor. I know you were watching, last night's game against App State. Big crowd, ESPN2 app. I think they, for multiple reports, probably the biggest crowd that they've had in a long time on campus there. Their students really rallied around the rivalry that is budding between these two programs. Not the outcome we wanted. We fall to 0-2 against App on the season. What you see in last night's game, and where are your thoughts now on where we stand now that, to be candid, App kind of has a stranglehold on that top spot in the Sun Belt standings?
I hated the outcome, obviously, but kudos to, it was a sellout crowd. I thought I saw somewhere where it was a record crowd, but if not, it was a sellout crowd. And remind everyone that a top 10 SEC school, not top 10 in the SEC, top 10 in the nation SEC school in Auburn visited there a few months ago, and they had about 1,000 less people there. So don't let anyone fool you that App State does not care about when JMU comes to town. I think we gave Old Dominion their largest crowd ever earlier this year. And the place was, if not the largest crowd ever, it was one of the largest crowds ever for an App State basketball game with JMU. Obviously, like I said, the results were tough. I do love seeing that atmosphere in Sunbelt basketball. We've continued to kind of talk about how the 4 new teams to Sunbelt are the 4 teams leading in attendance. And so I'd like for the Sunbelt to become more of a basketball league. The women's side right now, it's a top 10 net conference, but for the men's, we're just inside the top 20 at 19. But, that game was tough, and it was tough because I feel like we got beat really in every aspect of the game, some worse than others. I've never seen so many shots blocked in a game, and App State, I believe they're leading the country in shot blocks, and they had their average, I think, was 6.8 blocks per game. They had that in the first half. One of their own players exceeded the team average, which is leading the nation in shot blocks. So, this is one of those things where a lot of people come out very quickly, and it's like, wow, if I was the coach, man, I would have done X, Y, Z. You're not. And we all know Coach Byington is one of the best coaches in the mid-majors. And so I can't rationalize kind of why or how some adjustments maybe were made and maybe we didn't notice, or why certain adjustments weren't made. And maybe it was just flat out the inability to, I don't really know. It was tough to watch. But man, you got to give kudos to JMU for clawing back at the end there. I mean, they made it a game in that last minute, and that's such a characteristic of this JMU team throughout the year. But I did want to point out a couple things just real quick. That loss, it makes things a lot harder. So go back a few weeks ago, we're nationally ranked, and we're like, well, clearly we'll be the top 1 seed. But, even if we're not, there's no way we're not going to be a top 4. And that top 4 seed is so valuable in the Pensacola tournament because the top 4 get 2 byes in the tournament. And I was doing some math before the episode here. And so we're 2 games behind App State, and it's going to be very hard to catch up to them, unless there's some collapse by App State. And because the 2 games we've had against Apps, even if we get those 2 games back in time, they're always going to have the edge over us. Behind App and in front of us is Troy. It's the one team that we don't play this year, so we don't have a chance to get that game back against Troy. The team that we're currently tied with is Southern Miss, another Western Division team who we only play once. We lost that game. So we've gone from we're a shoo-in for kind of that 1-2 seed to we've really got to play some good basketball at the end of the season here to get that top 4 seed, which is so valuable for the rest and just the energy that team's going to need to power through 3 games to get to a championship. Now, having said all that doom and gloom, and I want to leave some stuff for Michael and Steve to talk about, but this is a good team, guys. I mean, I know a lot of people are disappointed about, there are some critiques about certain players and coaches and et cetera, et cetera. Prior to that App State game, we were one of 2 teams in the country with 18 wins. I mean, it was us and Purdue. We're still 18-3. I think, I hate to use because it's kind of a homer expression, but 21 games into the season, if you told me you could be 18-3 with a win over Michigan State, nationally ranked for half the year, of course we would take this. So we've got a lot of good winnable games coming up. We got 5 home games left. We got a 2-game homestand this week in men's basketball. We got a 2-game homestand 2 weeks after that, and then we have the Akron SBC MAC Challenge coming up. So a lot of good basketball. This team can make some waves, and Shane Metlin had a tweet last week that just showed how talented this team is. So we're in a good position. We are just not in as good of a position as we were a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and that MAC challenge is going to be a huge game. But I think your point is, but the games coming up at the AUBC, if we can't afford to stumble anymore, all the more important reason we need to pack that place. We need the students engaged because as we saw last night, no one will convince me that the atmosphere at App State didn't play a factor in that game. Their team handled the emotions, played well, and put themselves in a good spot, obviously, to have that number 1 seed. But a big part of that was the fact that their fans really rallied. Did want to ask you, though, because it's something that we saw after the game and a little bit before, too, is that there are some App State fans out there that don't seem to think we're their rival. Yet, if you watch the end of yesterday's game, not sure of too many teams who stormed the field against a team that's not their rivals. So I'm curious, Michael, where your head's at. And this was one of the discussions we threw out on social media about where this rivalry stands now between JMU and App State. And again, it posed the question, if it even is a rival. I think I know the answer to that question, but it at least appears as if there is some debate about that online.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, when you turn back, right, 3 or 4 years ago, before the Sun Belt stuff was confirmed, it was we wanted to be around other programs that care. We want other programs that matter if we win or lose. And you can't tell me that App State doesn't care about beating JMU. And you can't tell me that we don't care about losing App State. I will say this. I would imagine our students would storm the court a lot better than App State. I'll tell you that, with a bit more fervor and just commit. I think there's a little bit of that too. But yeah, I mean, Taylor kind of nailed on the head. It was a tough loss. I think we got in our head a little bit, but these games matter. These games will always be big games moving forward. I think we just need to get in the weight room a little bit more.
Yeah, and Coach Byington did mention that one of the issues he saw in the game was a little bit of the shot selection that continues to be an issue at times for this team. But he did think that there's a lot that they could learn from this and a lot that they could take up going into the remainder of the season. Steve, where are you at with the question that was posed out on social media? And if you're somebody watching this episode, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where does this rivalry with App, from your perspective, rank in kind of the new JMU landscape of teams we play each and every year? I know there are some people out there that believe ODU is our primary rival. Where is App State in terms of the pecking order with you in terms of teams you're going to focus on and teams you're going to want to beat moving forward?
Well, Well, ODU is not the rival. You actually have to win some games for it to be a rivalry. So until you do that, it's not really a rivalry. I mean, it will be eventually, I guess. I don't know. We'll see if ODU can pull that out. I hope so. I kind of like having an 81-64, interstate 81-64 type rivalry, but we're not there yet. For me, it's App State is our rival, and anybody that's a sports fan down there in Boone knows that's the case. Georgia Southern's not their rival any more than Coastal's our rival. I mean, at the end of the day, they can claim in the old days it might have been. My list, I've got App number 1 in terms of football, Marshall 2, Coastal a distant 3rd, and then ODU's 4. Until ODU starts to play and starts to win, they lost their top scorer today. He got kicked off the team at ODU. Don't know why. Shane Metlin said he'll have news about it tonight, but he's gone. He came off the bench against ODU. But so at the end of the day, that's how I see it. Right now, I mean, I enjoy it. I'm with Michael. They care. A lot of the teams in the Sun Belt care. So I'm not saying that they don't, but I think the East cares more than the West, at least at this point. And what we talked about kind of pre-show is, I think Troy is a budding rival of ours. Coming down the stretch. We'll see how it all shapes up next year in the West when we go to the championship game, since we've already won the East twice in a row, and now we'll win it the 3rd time, and now we'll be able to play and host the championship game this year. So all you app trolls out there, listen to this, and you guys can tweet at it, do whatever you want to do. You won't be playing as the runner-up. You won't be going to Troy to get your ass kicked. We'll have somebody from the West coming to Harrisonburg. And I wanted to throw something out to Taylor. Watching the game, the Dallas Cowboys look good. They look good tonight. Watching from wherever they are in crap Texas, wherever they live, it's nice that they're watching along with my Washington clowns, being able to watch Detroit and San Francisco. So how about them Cowboys?
Taylor, you have to respond to that. And if you want to say anything about the rivalry piece, please take it from here. You are on mute, though, Taylor. We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you when your mic's working. Michael, also some news this week in football, though, that we want to touch on. First of all, Todd Centeio, there, your mic's back. All right, well, we'll get to football in a second, but you make your point, Taylor.
I have no point about the Dallas Cowboys. I love them. They're awful. I've accepted it. No, I had so many people texting me yesterday, and it was just like, man, I hate App State. I mean, lots of people I hate App State. I hate App State. I hate App State. And they're mad about the football game and now the 2 basketball games. And my only thought to this was like, I didn't get text messages like that the last 10 years. Like, man, I hate Stony Brook. I can't stand Albany. That Charleston loss, that really stung. And I'll even say this. I know there was a great rivalry on the field between JMU and Richmond in football, but I'll never forget. I think it was that 08 game. We were at Richmond, and, it's like you could walk. There's Richmond fans walking by. You yell at them like, you suck. And they're like, what? And it's just like there just wasn't that. There wasn't that fan base to have a rivalry with. Like I want to yell at someone. And I want them to yell it back at me. And then we crack open a few beers at the tailgate together, and that was the App State atmosphere when we went there 2 years ago. I mean, I couldn't make it from one side of that main street through town to the other to get to the JMU tailgate without 20 different App State tailgates welcoming me to their tailgate. And then after the game, that same walk back, I couldn't count the amount of middle fingers and da-da-da. And it was just like that. They're frustrated. They're pissed off. And so that's what I want. And that's why, and no disrespect to Old Dominion. Well, maybe a little disrespect. Everyone knows this if you've listened to the show. I grew up down in Virginia Beach, Norfolk. I grew up an Old Dominion fan. I went to the CAA tournament as an Old Dominion fan. And so, like, I get the Old Dominion fandom, but down there, it's very much treated like a low-level professional team where you go because it's a good product and a lot of businesses and stuff get around there. And it's an entertainment opportunity down in Hampton Roads. But the ROI, or I guess the percentage of App State fans that are graduating and just bleeding black and gold versus the ODU populace that's they don't care about their sports there, even though they are good in certain things like App, like Marshall, and where App is kind of getting the edge for me. I know a lot of App fans, if they are listening to this, they're going to think, oh, how do you think you've passed Georgia Southern? I'm like, just give it time. But the App thing, unlike Marshall, where I want to beat Marshall every year in football, but App is getting to that point where it's just like, I want to beat them in everything. If their ultimate Frisbee team comes to JMU, I want to find out, did we beat them? And I don't know if JMU has ever had a top down across the board, this school, I want to beat them in everything, every time, but at the same time, have a healthy respect for the fan base, for the tradition, for the history, and for the atmosphere that they bring to the conference. So that's just my points on the rivalry stuff.
Yeah, and I'll say with that, a good rival makes you better. And I think App
Yeah.
State has that potential.
And I think with App State, right, you throw all the records out the window, right? Like you just throw all the records out. It's always going to be a good game, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they also have the ability to push us in facilities. They have the ability to push us in terms of every level of how we do things at this institution. I think now the bar is going to be set as how do we compare to App? And I think that is a very, very positive thing, especially with the new athletic director coming in and new to leadership, because you have to have peer institutions that are on par. And at the end of the day, it's really good for the Sun Belt. And I hope going forward, that's something that's marketed. I listened to the Ferrari and Smith podcast this week where they talked to Commissioner Gill, and one of the issues I thought they did a good job of pushing was how they're going to look at rivalries going forward. And they asked him, will the Sun Belt do a rivalry week? It didn't seem like there's, at least at the moment, an appetite for that for a variety of different reasons. But I do hope going forward that that JMU App State game, whatever sport it is one that the Sun Belt bills at the top of their card and does a lot to promote it, because I think it's good for the league and good for the national brand.
Just don't do it on Thanksgiving.
Well, here's the
bad
part.
Don't wear black. Maybe we should retire the black uniforms going forward. They're now in the same bucket as the gray uniforms.
Yes, good point.
But the bad part for those guys. But the bad part for the App State guys is we should have beat them last night, because now we're going to knock them out of the tournament. So we're going to beat them at the Sun Belt tournament.
Yeah,
and then they're not going to get in. Well, then they're not going to get into the NCAA tournament. So guess what, App State? Here you go. This is for you.
There you go. Real quick, before we get to our guests, I did want to get to some football news, though. We were able to highlight two Dukes last week that signed contracts with the CFL. Wanted to recognize some other former Dukes who are now going to have a chance to play professionally. Todd Centeio announcing this week that he will also be heading to Western Canada to play for the Edmonton Elks. So we're going to get a chance to see Devin and Percy take on Toddy in Western Canada. So that'll be fun for us all to watch. If you've never been out there, beautiful part of the country that all three of them are going to be going to, and they get big crowds too. So should be some great atmospheres. Sam Kidd signing with the UFL to the DC Defenders. So if you're somebody in Northern Virginia, DC, you're going to be able to chance to see Sam Kidd continue his career. And then we want to give a shout out to Chris Thornton signing with the Ottawa Red Blacks. So lots of big news in terms of Dukes continuing their pro careers. And it's still early. Could see more guys get their opportunity to sign on, and that is great for the brand of JMU football. Michael, I want to go to you, because it's been, if you're anybody that follows any of the coaches on Twitter, or if your algorithm is showing you now more and more recruiting news, there has been a flood of offers. Our staff kind of going all over the state, all over the country. I've seen coaches in Atlanta. I've seen coaches in Texas. We have recruits in Canada starting to get offers from JMU. What are you seeing out there, and any trends developing for you in this as we head towards that signing day? I know we're not just looking at recruits for this season. Now it's 2025 and 26 offers going out there. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think we're seeing like the Holy Cross sort of like coaching coming into play here, where we're really looking at a national search, right, in terms of players. We've got folks in Texas going out. We've got offers going out to Illinois, Ohio, taking care of our home state as well. I think Sam Daniels and Justin Harper are taking care of Virginia, but really looking anywhere and everywhere for talent. I think the joke right now is I think many of the coaches are more on a plane or in a car versus actually being on campus right now. I think the team is spending more time with the strength and conditioning staff. So to being your point, right? Like we've got a lot of seniors coming in, and we've got almost 20 portal players. Majority of them have like 1 year left of eligibility. So we've got to start stacking 2025, 2026 offers, because a lot of those end up turning around, and knowing how fluid all this eligibility is, you just never know who we need to start building relationships with today. A couple of other news, right? We picked up a tight end from Vanderbilt, Logan Kyle, more of like a tight end stretch receiver player, and then also Noah Rules from UConn, a kicker. So we had a lot of questions on who's going to replace Camden Wise. I think he was a starter for UConn, and he's got 2 years left. Also, underrated news this week. Sam Daniels obviously took over the D-line position at JMU. Kyrie Hawkins, former national champion and 2017 grad, is taking over his position at Delaware, future Conference USA opponent. So really shout out to him. Excellent linebacker for JMU. He was, I think, at USF last year as a quality control coach, now taking a full-time position coach at an FBS program. So really excited to see other JMU alums stepping up.
Yeah, and that's great. And part of the show is we always want to highlight the good news of former JMU athletes and what they're doing post their JMU career. So congratulations to him, and hopefully maybe we see him when that was that 2027 we play Delaware.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
2 years.
it's a while, so we've got time. So in the coaching world, that might as well be 100 years, but you never know. But it's good to see Duke's having success in the coaching world. And with that, we are going to bring on our first guest for tonight's episode. If you've listened to us from day one, we try to highlight as many of the stories of our former JMU players as possible and to give them a voice. Tonight is particularly important because one of those former Dukes is doing some incredibly important work in the community to help coaches across the country. And we wanted to bring on Casey Kroll. Casey, we've been trying to get you on for a while now. We're really grateful you could spend some time with us on a Sunday night. Before we get into your work, we always kind of serve off right off the top to introduce you to our listeners. Give us a little insight into your JMU story, how you came to JMU, and give our listeners and watchers a little bit of insight into your playing career at JMU.
Yeah, sure. Thank you guys for having me on. I'm glad it worked out. How I got to JMU was I'm from a little podunk town in Virginia, and I wasn't heavily recruited out of high school. And so I went to a school called Fork Union Military Academy for a prep year after that. So that kind of gave me another year to kind of develop and add weight because I knew I was going to be an offensive lineman, even though I wasn't in high school. So went to Fork Union. I got recruited by 2 schools out of Fork Union. I got recruited by JMU and University of Texas, El Paso. And I'll never forget, to me, it was a no-brainer. I'm like, I'm going to JMU. And I had to call the UTEP coach at the time, which was an FBS school. It still is, but he couldn't believe that I picked JMU over UTEP. And so, I made my decision and it never looked back on it. And to this day, one of the best decisions I ever made. That's how I ultimately ended up at JMU. And that was in 2011. January 2011 is when I first stepped on campus. So that's how I got to JMU.
So where are you from in Virginia? You said a podunk town. I'm from a podunk town, so I want to know how podunk yours is.
All right. Yeah. You always have to. It's competitive when you start talking about podunk towns. I'm from Fauquier County. I live in Midland, Virginia, which is a booming metropolis near kind of Stafford and Fredericksburg. Yep.
I grew up in Fishersville between Stanton and Waynesboro.
Yeah. We probably grew up very similarly then.
We did. So tell us a little bit before we get into the Big Mountain Foundation. What's going on with you in terms of personal life and, where you're living, married, all that kind of good stuff. Because, most of these folks, a lot of the folks need to hear kind of what's going on with Casey since he left.
Yeah. So, man, this last year has been a whirlwind. I got married to another JMU Duke. My wife, Haley, is amazing. We got married in June in Harrisonburg. We had the Duke dog at our wedding. So that was big. And before that, we had moved and my wife started a new job. And so that was big. Went on our honeymoon. Then we got a puppy named Coach. I was somehow able to talk my wife into naming our dog Coach. So we have a puppy. And then we recently found out that my wife is pregnant and she's due with a baby boy in June. So it's been a whirlwind, kind of on all fronts for me. So, but I can't complain. All very good things. So we're very excited, but yeah, man, it's been crazy.
Well, congrats. That's good. That's good stuff to hear. So let's delve into a little bit of background before we get into the big man and talk a little bit about Jamal Powell for our folks out there that don't know about Coach Powell. I'm going to let you kind of fill them in. I met Coach Powell when he was on the staff and came in. He was my alpha dog golf partner for the years he was at JMU. So we grew quite close together. Spent a lot of time together. I worked with him a little bit when he went to Lamar, when his mom got sick, and then when he went to SMU. And then when he got sick, we were in contact with each other. So let me let you tell your Jamal story, and then you can kind of lead into the Big Man Foundation, or I can lead you into that. But tell them a little bit about Jamal and how Jamal kind of impacted your life.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it's kind of a natural segue from my playing career into how I got to the Big Man Foundation and my experience with Coach Powell. So it would have been going into my senior season at JMU, which was 2015. Coach Powell got hired as our offensive line coach. And at this point, Coach Powell was my fourth offensive line coach that I had in my 5 years at JMU. And so you kind of feel in that situation as a player, you kind of feel kind of like the jaded cop on the force that's like a few years from getting his pension, where it's just like, all right, what's this guy going to teach me? It's going to be different than anything that the first three said. But man, was I wrong with that mindset, because Coach Powell turned out to be an amazing coach, great person. What made Coach Powell so special as a coach was he was just so relatable, because he was relatively young, and he was just a player's coach. Like, you could tell, like, he was into coaching because he just liked making a difference in the players' lives and wanted to see be like truly the best version of yourself that you could be, not just football player, but as a human being, a student. Just on all fronts. And so really just kind of blew my mind. And I'd never really considered going into coaching until my senior year with Coach Powell. And I think towards the end of my senior year, I started having talks with him about, like, I had another semester of graduate school, and I knew I wasn't going to pursue what I was studying. I was studying my master's in public administration. And my concentration was in nonprofit management. And I was like, I don't even know why I'm nonprofit management concentration, because I'm never going to use this ever. But I was wrong, which I'll get to eventually. But yeah, started talking to Coach Powell, and he's like, yeah, why don't, you got another semester of grad school. Why don't you come, help? You can come sit in meetings and you can set up drills and whatever. And I'm like, all right, awesome. That sounds great. And we had our first practice that spring, and I was like, this is awesome. I love this. I could see myself doing this. And so from that moment on, I kind of hitched my wagon to Coach Powell, and him and I became like inseparable. He became like, I'm the oldest in my family. I'm the oldest of four. And so Coach Powell kind of became like the big brother I never had. He wasn't just like my boss, but like I lived with him multiple times, him with his family and his kids. And just really like the relationship changed, and it changed fast. And so my first year coaching would have been the national championship year, which was a good first year to be a coach. That was a lot of fun, a lot of great memories from that time. And then again, like, I attached myself to Coach Powell. He had some family reasons. He was originally from Houston, Texas, and he wanted to be closer to home. And so after that year at JMU, we packed up and went to Lamar, and I kind of followed him there. I was this little Padawan understudy graduate assistant, and we were at Lamar University for a year. And then Coach Powell got hired from Lamar University to go to Southern Methodist University, and again, brought me with him. And that was like his dream job, being an offensive lineman from Texas. His goal was to always get back and be an FBS coach in Texas, coaching the offensive line. And so he had made it in his mind. That was one of his huge career accomplishments. He was so proud of himself, and he should have been, because that's a huge step for a coach. And so I was thrilled to be in Dallas and to be there working under Coach Powell for my third year, and was be guaranteed a fourth year with him. But like a few months after we moved to Dallas, Coach Powell got really sick, and they couldn't figure out what it was, but the side effects were awful. Within a few months, it was like a few months. Like, I went home we had like 3 weeks off in the summer. And so I went back to Virginia, and by the time I came back, he had lost like a ton of weight, like 100 pounds. He'd lost feeling in his hands and his legs. So like he was in a wheelchair, but he couldn't feed himself. He couldn't brush his teeth. He couldn't go to the bathroom by himself because he couldn't feel anything. And what they ended up finding was that it was a very rare and aggressive form of cancer. They originally thought it was Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS, which it wasn't. And it ended up being cancer. And, it started with his colon, and then it spread to his stomach. And after a few years, it was awful having to watch what Coach Powell and his family went through, because it was a slow, painful process, and I'll never forget it. But he ended up passing away in 2021 from cancer. He was a few days shy of his 40th birthday and had a wife and 3 young kids. And so I was devastated. And it was before, it was before Coach Powell passed. I just graduated from SMU I was a graduate assistant, so I was there for 2 years. I got my master's degree, and then I was kind of looking for other coaching jobs. But I went and talked to Coach Powell, and I was like, Coach Powell, I got to be honest, like my heart's really not in it. And I kind of have this insane idea to start a charity kind of in your honor to not only help your family, but to help other coaching families. You know, coaches are so selfless. There should be an organization or resources for them when something devastating like this happens to them. And I just feel like I'm being called to pursue that. And I was pretty much asking for his blessing if I could do it, and he would support it. And he was like, absolutely. And so that's how we started the Big Man Foundation. And every decision we've made about the Big Man Foundation, we've considered Coach Powell in, even from the name, which some people think is awesome. Some people think it's a ridiculous name. I love it. But Coach Powell used to call the offensive line the Big Man Fraternity. And so it's kind of an homage to him naming the charity the Big Man Foundation. So that's how we got our name. And like you guys said, our mission is to help coaches, any sport, any level of competition, anywhere in the country that finds himself dealing with a hardship.
So tell us a little bit more about that. When you find a hardship, what are you guys doing for coaches that are in a hardship as part of the Big Man Foundation?
Sure. So it's come a long way. Because I'm going to be honest with you, here's how we started the charity. Was we were originally going to do a GoFundMe, and then my college roommate from JMU was like, what if we took it a step further? Let's do a charity, so we not only help the Powells, but we help other coaching families. And I was like, all right, sure. And again, I took one nonprofit class during my MPA program at JMU, and I went to my professor from JMU, and me and my roommate Lou Chiquetto just kind of Shark Tanked the idea to her, and she was like, "This has legs. Let me help you incorporate." She ended up Jennifer Taylor ended up being our board president for the first 3 years of BMF, and that's how we started. And when we first started, we just, whenever we'd hear about a hardship, we'd reach out to the family and just kind of see how we could help. And really, we were so young, and we were just kind of fueled by passion that all we could really do was send some money to help them out, and just hope it helped them get through that situation. And that's how it started. And it's changed so much, and the impact is so much bigger now. We're in our 4th fiscal year now. And I think the best case story that we have of what we do and the impact that we make was a local coach in Culpeper, Virginia. There's a lot of parallels to Coach Powell. He was mid to late 30s, wife, 3 young kids, was diagnosed with a brain tumor the size of a lemon. His in-network doctors told him that it was inoperable, and they were referred to BMF by someone that had heard of us and that knew the family. And so they reached out to us and were like, hey, here's our situation. How can you all help us? And so we kind of rolled the sleeves up and went to work. And we, for this family, we found ways that they could get a second opinion and get a surgery paid for that was out of network. So I would have loved to have stroked a check to just, hey, let us know how much the surgery cost at wherever you want to get it, and we'll take care of it. Unfortunately, we didn't have that capacity then. We probably still don't have that capacity, but we were able to help them identify other ways that they could get that surgery, what other resources are available for them to get that surgery help paid for. And so we did that. And then a lot of times when coaches are going through something like this, it's a once in a lifetime kind of like a freak accident, and no one has any experience dealing with it. And we kind of do, because that's just what we do. And so what we're able to do is go to these families and say, like, hey, before you get this operation done, we need to make sure that you have, your wife has medical power of attorney, that you have a will. We're going to pay for your mortgage for a few months just to give you all the financial freedom to focus on recovery and do whatever you need to do to heal as a family. And that's what we were able to do for this local coach. He ended up getting a 24-hour procedure with 4 doctors. He had the the tumor removed and is at home recovering now. And that was kind of a surreal moment for us, because we went from helping out people a little bit here and there to like, whoa, we really moved the needle for this family. And so that's what it's grown to.
So Casey, I have two questions. The first one is, and I want to kind of play off the story you were just telling us. Tell everyone who's listening, what is the process of how people that you help are identified? Is it more you and your board are finding out about these opportunities, or are people seeking out the Big Man Foundation?
Yeah, and that's another story that speaks to how much we've grown. When we first launched the website, we launched it December 1st of 2020. We released the website and we're like, all right, let's watch these applications roll in and we'll see how we can help. And I mean, months crawled by without any applications for the grant. And we're like, all right, maybe we don't have the brand awareness yet. And so what we ended up doing is we sought out coaches. So we set up like Google News alerts and just kept our eyes peeled on social media whenever something came up. And then we try to reach out to the family and touch base with them and see how we could help. And what we're seeing now is we have a lot more people being referred to us. So other people have heard about the Big Man Foundation and referred families to us, which means that we are growing. Our marketing's working and that our brand identity is growing a little bit. So, yeah, that's how we started, and that's where we're at now. It's mostly referrals now.
And I know the Big Man Foundation, in the grand scheme of things, is still in a young phase of an organization. But having had over 3 years under your belt, what would you say is kind of a short-term forecast for what you kind of see the Big Man Foundation being able to do in the next 3 to 5 years, and then maybe what's kind of a stretch goal over the next decade?
Yeah, that's a great question. For us, our main goal, and I have a great board that I work with in heavy JMU ties. Everyone from my college roommate from JMU to my professor from JMU who helped us start that. Us three were the co-founders. And then with Aaron Stinney, as soon as we launched the BMF, Aaron Stinney for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was like, I want to be involved. So Aaron's on our board. Brian Shore was the quarterback during the national championship year. Same thing, jumped on our board. Jim Heffernan's an editor for the Madison Magazine. Was my partner on a class project when I was at JMU. He helps us with all our communications. So heavy JMU ties. But yeah, our board, we meet regularly, and our goal is just to be able to grow our capacity so that we can help more people in more meaningful ways. And so, right now we're able to help families. If they're going through a hardship, we can help pay their mortgage we'll pay their mortgage for a few months. And we're really proud of that, to be able to offer that to families, and it really helps them out. But my vision for it and what I think we're capable of was I'd like to be able to pay off people's mortgages one day and tell them, you don't have to worry about money, right? You worry about getting healthy and we'll take care of everything else. And so we do that now, just not as big of a scale as what's possible. So that's kind of what our goal is to keep it, to plainly put it, is to help more people in more meaningful ways.
I love that. And Casey, thanks for hopping on today, because over the last 3 to 4 years, right, I've seen the BMF logo all across social media being spread about by, you mentioned Brian Shore and Aaron Stinney. So it's great to hear you sort of talk a little bit about how you're helping the community out, right, and coaches out, et cetera. So love to hear it. I wanted to take you down memory lane a little bit. You mentioned 2011 JMU. Here we go. You chose JMU over UTEP, right? Pretty awesome. I think they were at the time, maybe still our Mountain West, right? Or no, Conference USA FBS program. For our younger listeners, 2011 was also the year that Bridgeforth got the facelift up to 25,000. So I got two questions for you. Number one, tell us a little bit about the impact. I'm sure Mickey was selling that stadium pretty hard back then. And then number two, I'd love to kind of hear, what was it like, opening that stadium versus the perennial contending Northeastern champions, the Central Connecticut State. I think they're the Blue Devils, I believe.
Blue Devils, yeah, that's right.
Blue Devils in that game.
Yeah, I think I was part of I was probably the first recruiting class, and I think it's been every recruiting class since. One of the recruiting pitches was that they were going to finish the other side of the stadium, and that's still that's still ongoing. But yeah, that was big. That was exciting because it looked like a real football stadium, like, whoa, this is big time. And not only was it a big stadium, but JMU also filled it. And so that was cool. But for me, like when I made my decision to go to JMU, I grew up an hour and a half from JMU. I'm the oldest of 4. So my brothers and sisters were like young, like middle school age. So being close to them was big. A lot of my friends from high school went to JMU, and it was a superior academic school. And so those were the things that like really went into my decision, were like proximity to home, academics. Obviously the social setting at JMU was ideal too, but I thought that's what you were going to go into 2011. Glad you didn't. But yeah, so that's what went into my decision. I don't remember much about the not Coastal Carolina, the Central Connecticut game, because I didn't play much. I didn't play much until like my junior, senior. And again, I was a backup, a dependable backup at best at JMU. That's why I had to bring in Aaron Stinney and Brian Shore. I need to have a little star power for BMF. But yeah, I just remember it was electric. I remember how excited everybody was for the stadium. And it was just running out onto the field at Bridgeforth for the first time. That's something you'll never forget. And man, it was a special time.
Yeah, I think that was my junior year in college. And I remember the first time they did the JMU Dukes, and you can hear sort of the echo from the stadium. That was kind of still gives me chills. I think we won that game 14-9. Found a way to win out, but it was
those were always dog fights in those days. Those out of conference beginning of the season. I think that what was cool for me about that game was like I didn't have any means of comparison. I mean, I never played at JMU before that stadium was built, but to see the excitement in like the guys in the locker room that were older than me, and even the coaches, you could tell like how emotional it was for them to run out onto that field for the first time. And especially like the older guys on the team that really helped pave the way for something like that to happen at JMU, a big expansion on the stadium. They took a lot of pride in it. And so that was really cool to see.
Yeah. And then going back to Coach Powell, for folks listening, many might remember when Coach Houston, I think, came in, you retained, I believe, Coach Powell for the 2016 year, coached the O-line for the national championship year with Mitch Kirsch was on that line, Matt Frank, Steve, like you mentioned.
Yeah, Kyle Rigney
at center. Tell us a little bit about like the culture he created, right? Because I think him and also oh my gosh, the name is leaving me right now. The tight ends coach at the time, Coach Bowers, I feel like were the two, big player coaches that everyone loved. Talk a little bit about the culture they were able to maintain at JMU with the coaching change.
Yeah, everyone loved Coach Powell because he was just so relatable, and he went out of his way to form a relationship with everybody on the team. And like when he talked to you, he just made you feel like so special, like you were the only person in the world that mattered to him. And it was a gift. Like it was truly a gift that he had. And so everyone loved Coach Powell. And Coach Powell was fun because he wasn't all business all the time. So like if we were in the film room and we got through all the film that we were supposed to watch, but he didn't want to turn us loose yet, like he would just ask us what YouTube videos we wanted to watch, and we'd pull them up and we'd watch them as a group and we'd laugh our butts off. And like that's the stuff that I remember more than like the games or what happened on each play. Was just like the fun, how much I look forward to going to meetings, because there's a lot of times where football it felt like a job, and it never felt that way with Coach Powell. It just was like an escape almost from everything else. And that's why he was so good at his job, and that's why he climbed the ranks so quick. And so Coach Powers is awesome. He has more one-liners. I mean, if I could wrote down all his one-liners, it'd be a New York Times best-selling book. I think he's hilarious. So yeah.
Well, Casey, before we get to the most important question any CEO of a nonprofit likes to hear, we wanted to let you know on behalf of JMU Sound Off that we're going to be making a $500 donation to the foundation.
Wow, thank you guys.
We also had a matching donor who is going to match that gift. So at the very least tonight, you're going to have $1,000 more to your mission to help coaches across the country, and that just I hope shows you how much we believe in what we're doing. I wanted to give you an opportunity, though, to the listeners who will watch tonight, and you're going to see me pop off screen because I'm intentionally going to help make a clip for you that we can use after this. I'm going to give you the floor to yours for what your message would be to fans of JMU or fans of this of any of the programs you could potentially help down the line. And then please make sure at the end, like any good nonprofit CEO, how can people donate to your foundation to help coaches again deal with those tragic moments and the struggles that they deal with in their lives.
Yeah. So as you know, or maybe as you may not know, but athletic coach is one of the most impactful relationships that young people have in their entire lives. And it's not just me saying that. There's tons of stats that go to back it up. And so what we honestly believe is that that's a community worth serving because kindness and goodness compound in life, So our goal is to help these coaches, to give them the resources that they or their family need to get them back on the field, making a difference in the lives of young athletes. And so if anyone wants to support our mission, we say that there's 3 ways that you can help us, the 3 T's: your time, your talent, or your treasure. So if you want to volunteer, if you want to host a fundraiser, if you want to get involved with BMF, like I would love to have that conversation with you. If you have a talent that would help BMF grow, if you're a lawyer, if you're an accountant, something like that, and you want to volunteer your talent to help BMF grow, I would love to have that conversation with you. And then the last thing, and this is probably what you're alluding to with what any good nonprofit CEO would bring up is, people make a difference in this world, but resources make real change. And so if our message really resonates with you and you have a means to make a gift and you feel compelled to, we would love if you made a gift to BMF to help us be able to do what we do. And our reality is that we're in year 4 and people are starting to figure out what BMF is and what we do to help coaches. And the truth is the demand for our services is at an all-time high, and we need to be able to grow as an organization in order to meet that need. And again, to fulfill our end game goal, which is to help more people in more meaningful ways. So you can do that by going to our website, www.thebigmanfoundation.org, to make a gift or to learn more about BMF and how you can get involved.
Awesome. Great work, Casey. Seriously, again, as somebody who also works for a nonprofit every day, I understand how challenging the work can be, and especially continuing to let donors know the relevance in a world of people pulling at them to make donations. And I can say firmly that you speak well on behalf of your organization. And I know as a JMU alum, I'm very proud of what you're doing. And I'm sure Coach Powell is also proud of what you're doing. And thank you for what you'll do in the future for coaches across the country who are in need of your assistance. And we hope you come back in the future again to share this message, because it's critically important. And we want you always have a forum and always have a venue here to share this message.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much. JMU community has been so great to us, and it means so much. And I can't thank you guys enough for having me on. And just the gift is unreal. Thank you guys so much for doing that. And my sacred promise to you is that we're going to put it to good use, and it's going to go to help some families in some pretty cool ways. So look forward to hearing how we do that.
Awesome. Thanks, Casey, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday night.
Thanks. Go Lions. Go Dukes.
Take it easy, Casey. And with that, awesome. A lot of things bigger than sports, and we talk about sports on this podcast, the sports show, but it's incredible to see a JMU alum doing such important stuff in honor of one of those coaches that we all knew and loved, and Coach Powell, who was one of those coaches that for years to come, people are going to continue to talk about. And that's a sign that he made a lasting impact. And that's incredibly powerful. Did want to transition back into final thoughts, as we always do. I'll start with you, Michael, because you're in the top right. Lots of things going on in the JMU universe. What are you looking for as we go into this week of things we're getting closer to signing day? I know that's something that you're keeping your eyes on as we start to turn our attention to recruiting. Some big news potentially happening on signing day.
Yeah, I was going to say, reminder everyone, February 7th is the official signing day. We had the early one back in December. But big week coming up, right? I think there's another round of visits this past weekend. A little bit rainier at JMU, but hopefully still be able to attract really top talent. Don't be surprised if you see a lot of commits, particularly preferred walk-ons, right? It's typically around that time when those guys start filing in addition to more portal players. Just want to give a quick recap. I think we're almost to 40 newcomers for the 2024 roster. So I just want to give everyone context around what the portal has done and the type of program that we're going into here that Chesney has to bring back together. 40 potential newcomers with preferred walk-ons, porta players, high school recruits, etc. So next Wednesday, hopefully a big episode for us when we recap hopefully all 40 players and some new surprises as well. So big week for JMU, and I'm looking forward to seeing any announcements coming off through social media.
All right. And remember, some of those preferred walk-ons become stars. I mean, go down the last couple of years, how many players who started as a walk-on and became an incredibly impactful player on our roster. A couple of those transferred to Indiana who were stars in our program. So don't sleep on that player development. And note, that seems to be something that Coach Chesney and the staff is really known for in getting the most out of the talent that they bring on campus. So exciting to see those offers come in and future Dukes who will make an impact on the field as well as off the field, as we just heard from Casey. Taylor, what's on your mind?
Well, we kind of ran down the men's basketball situation. We talked a little bit about the women's basketball game at App State. Women's basketball team's in a kind of a similar situation with the men, where they're hanging around right now. I believe the women right now are tied for third with ULM, who we beat, and it's the only time we play them, so that's a good thing. They are Marshall's in first. Marshall, we've lost one game to them. We have one more shot at them, I think, February 3rd, and that's at Marshall. Troy is a game where we lost, and it's the only game we played with them. So similar to the men, some of those Western teams that are kind of hanging around in those top 4 spots with us, we get one shot with them. We got ULM. We didn't get Troy. So they too are kind of in a similar position where, again, it's all about that top 4 seed when you get into the Sun Belt basketball tournament. The conference net of the Sun Belt for the women, a little bit higher. I think it's 10th out of the conferences. So, but both are kind of looking like they're going to be one bid leagues to the NCAA tournament. So getting that top 4 spot, getting an opportunity to play in the championship game is huge. And also just kind of circling back, actually real quick about men's basketball. Y'all are making fun of all the black jerseys and everything. I saw that Akron is a blackout. So there's that. But Akron,
still time.
Akron, 6 p.m. Was announced as another nationally televised game for the men's basketball program, nationally televised from the Atlantic Union Bank Center. So get out there. February 10th, Saturday. No reason to not come from out of town and get out there. But we do got spring sports just around the corner. Softball, which, let's be honest, we have one of the nicest softball facilities in the country.
Recently upgraded too.
Yes. If those of you have not seen, we've added an upper deck to the softball stadium last year. Definitely try and get out and enjoy a game out there at the ballpark. I believe their season is starting next week or the 9th, February 9th, 2 weeks. And then the first game at home is February 16th against Villanova. The men, I believe, started Arkansas before coming to their home opener against Virginia Tech. Always a great reason to go out there. So we got spring sports coming around. And I think, I don't have this in front of me, but the women's lacrosse game against North Carolina is the same day as the Akron game, correct? So yes. we got a lot of good JMU sports. Spring season is a big deal for JMU. That's usually kind of one of the times we excel. And going back to when it comes to baseball for the Sun Belt, I know some people maybe don't follow college baseball as closely when we were in the CAA, but the Sun Belt, for all intents and purposes, is a P5 conference most years. I mean, they crack into that top 5, top 4 spot. A lot of good baseball. I did see that we have 6 Dukes ranked as top MLB prospects in the Sun Belt. Came out on Twitter, so go check that out. But a lot of really good opportunities to enjoy some good baseball, good softball, good lacrosse, spring sports at JMU. Beautiful weather. Go Dukes.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. Steve, your final thoughts.
Took me a second. Sorry. On the Big Man Foundation, I want to thank Casey again. It's a great charity. If you're interested in kind of broadening out a little bit, he does mean it. If he needs people to help out with time as well as money. So if you've got some expertise, I'll put a little plug in there for him. It's also a great way to connect with some your former JMU folks that are there. On the basketball side, I tweeted about it today. We'll see with the men's basketball guys if they're going to decide, coming off of this loss to App, which I think they will, that they're going to change it up and learn some things from the way they're playing. And I'm not saying they're playing poorly, so don't take that to mean that at all. But they got to make a push. They're in a position now. They got to make a push in February, and February sets up nice for them. So home at Coastal on the 1st, and we got home at ODU on the 3rd. Then they're at Arkansas State, and then the home with Akron for that blackout on the 10th. The women do play at noon lacrosse. That's with Carolina. I think the Akron game is at 6 that night. On the women's side, I like what they're doing. They do grind it out. I tell you, they really it reminds me of football in a lot of ways, and they probably don't want to hear that, but they grind you down and then just beat the ever living hell out of you in the 4th quarter. I was watching that game yesterday, and I'm like, I'm getting frustrated during the first 3 quarters. And Alice said to me, she said, just wait till the 4th quarter. They'll pull away and just pound the hell out of them. And that's exactly what they did. And that's what they do almost every game, which I think is great. So they're at Georgia State on the 31st. They've got Marshall, which they need to revenge. It's a revenge win, hopefully, up there. Then they're home to South Alabama. Then they go to Ball State, and then they're home at Georgia State. Softball, to pick up on what Taylor was talking about, outstanding roster. This is going to be fun. They've got a transfer pitcher in from Georgia who's unbelievable. So come out and watch the softball, folks. We're going to be out there watching some softball. She's phenomenal. And I found out about her with a guy that I play tennis with who's friends with her parents. And he goes, you have an unbelievable pitcher coming to JMU. And I'm like, I heard, but he says, I know her and I'm going to come to JMU games. And I'm like, okay, let's get you signed up for the Duke Club and see if I can get him to give. So good things going on the basketball side, good things going on the spring sports side. So just want to, to hype that a little bit. We're kind of in a lull right now on the football side. It's a lot of recruiting that's going on right now, which is fun. It looks like we're signing every player from every state. Every time I see that Twitter lights up, it's like another offer went out to somebody. I'm like, good God almighty. It looks like we have like 89,000 offers out to people, which is great. I haven't seen it be on that national level in a long time. So it's exciting to see, and really looking forward to, when we get into the spring and see how these guys are doing. I do know they're working their butts off in the weight room. They're getting their asses kicked right now, which is kind of fun. I like hearing that. I like hearing that, you didn't settle into some routine. There's no routine. These guys are cranking. And what I'm hearing is they're having a lot of fun. So that's a good thing. So I'll end on that, and let's go Detroit Lions. I could use somebody different in the Super Bowl to beat up on the Taylor Swift Kansas City Chiefs, which would be kind of fun.
And remember that work that they do in the weight room now is the type of things that get you those extra inches in the fall. So important time for that strength and conditioning staff, and an exciting time for those players as they build those relationships. Did want to mention really quickly, some news came out from JMU. Season ticket renewals have begun. We're going to hopefully be having some folks from JMU to talk about both the Duke Club aspect of season ticket renewals, as well as your what it takes to get into potentially a waiting list for season tickets, as we saw last year. So if you're somebody interested in season tickets, if you're somebody who had season tickets in the past, now is the time to start thinking through your renewals. JMUsports.com. You can find up that information and make sure that you have your seat secured in Bridgeforth, as well as parking and everything that comes with it. And with that, we're going to end tonight's episode. As always, thank you to our sponsors, Montpelier Collective, Skyline Financial Partners. Again, if you'd like to support the Big Man Foundation, as Casey mentioned, thebigmanfoundation.org. All the information about their programs, as well as how you can donate, is available with that. And we'll see you next week. JMU Sound Off. Go Dukes.